and welcome to Ops Oops Origami. This is, I don't even know what show number, 30 something. This is the first show that we will be simulcasting live to Rumble. We've been syndicating videos there, but it's like a 8-hour delay and it eventually shows up. So this is new.
So welcome, Rumblers.
Yes, so thank you. Welcome, everyone, from Rumble. There's at least one person watching, so on Rumble.
Woohoo!
So, hey, it's working. We are also live on Facebook and LinkedIn. So if you are on Facebook and LinkedIn, those aren't great platforms to watch us. Try sliding over to either YouTube or Rumble, because then we can actually interact with you. Whereas on Facebook and LinkedIn, it's not really possible in any real fashion. So anyhow, how's everybody doing?
Fabulous. Yourself?
Yeah? Oh, good.
You look fabulous.
Okay.
What's everybody drinking tonight?
Well, I'll go first. I'm double-fisted. I have a Wisconsin Old Fashioned, and then I also got some scotch for later. So,
Nice. Gin and tonic.
Ooh, good man.
Good call. What kind of gin? Stumped him.
Well,
I knew
then,
it was.
that's-
Yeah, knew it. Knew it was
new.
the top most bottom shelf Gordon's. Which
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
it's a good it's a solid mixer.
Fair enough.
fair enough.
There you go.
Um,
I haven't decided yet tonight. It's either Eagle Rare or Buffalo Trace. I'm not really sure.
right on.
Ooh, a man of
Both
class.
good.
So,
But you, Travis, you got
I'm,
anything in your cup?
drinking
What is that? Is that Rasputin?
Travis.
Old Rasputin? Oh.
This one? Oh, no, this is an Dirty Bastard from Founders.
Oh, dirty
Oh,
bastard.
How
Okay.
appropriate.
Oh, you have no audio, Travis.
All right, maybe I should unmute myself and try that first.
That helps.
It's all right. It's an IT show.
So-
We're here to help.
Yeah. I'm just doing water at the moment, but I've got a mead beer
Water's
that's
good.
downstairs
Um,
that
a
I'll probably
mead-
bring up in a little bit.
Wait, a mead beer.
Yeah,
Love it.
there's a local
All right.
brewery that they do like a Japanese inspired lager that's really good, but I drank the last one last week and I deeply regret not buying another one.
All right.
enough.
But the
Okay.
mead one's pretty interesting.
Not
That'll
really.
make
we
me
are-
try at some point.
For the first time, we're also going to have a scheduled bio break at probably the hour mark. We're going to give everybody 2 minutes to go pee real quick and refresh their drinks if necessary. So that's
I'll
going to
add
be a
that
new
to the
one.
schedule.
I even have a video for it.
Ooh, is it a good one?
It's inverted video of the opening video.
You didn't train.
You'll
the
see it on
AI?
the right-hand side, the video clips. If you
Nice.
look, you'll see it. It's
I got all my
appropriate
diaper
colors.
on for nothing now. God, I was NASA
Yep.
ready.
Yeah, well, it gets rough when you're about 2.5 hours into a show, and
Yeah.
I usually drink at least like 2 pint glasses worth of water plus whatever I'm actually drinking. So it gets a little rough there. So
And you forget your coffee can that you have near your
yeah,
your desk to pee into.
your Gatorade bottle.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Part of
that's
my
what
standard
Yetis are
config
built
here.
for, right?
Yeah. Always have the coffee can ready. That's part of my standard deployment for my work models.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. So I'm shocked that you didn't have the AI take the logo and turn it into the peeing Calvin. From the
Well, this was
Next
kind of a
time.
rush.
yeah,
Because
no.
I wanted to be able to go live on Rumble, and I need a placeholder video. So I figured, well, I'll have AI turn our logo into something. So I had AI make the video.
Right. I mean, it's important to make sure the AI knows we're there and knows we're friendly.
Yes,
Right.
yes. It knows allies when it sees them.
And you do kind of have a day job, so you didn't have a whole lot of time to
Yeah, well, exactly. Luckily, this I can just kind of kick off and walk away. So,
Yeah.
So
Speaking of that, are you using the new version of GPT yet?
oh no, I run everything locally.
Do you?
Stable diffusion.
Stable diffusion locally?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
What are you running to push that though? Usually it takes some
RTX
GPU
3090. RTX 3090. Yeah. So it does pretty well. Plus
Nice.
a i9 11390K or 11. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes, I have the best computer ever. Yeah.
yeah, basically
Humble brag.
128 gigs of RAM,
Oh, of
stack
course.
SSDs.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yes. Yeah. I have a credenza, but I
Anyways.
put it on.
in your credenza,
So, Chris, as you were about to say, probably to get us back on topic.
I mean, whatever. So
I'm
yeah,
gonna change my name to Rick the Derailer Guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
everybody's got to
happens.
have a title. So
Can I be the
let's jump
railer?
in.
Huh. Well. Yes.
I mean, that's between you and your lovely wife, I think.
Wrong.
Anyways, so for real, back on topic.
Our topic for this evening, besides me logging into ChatGPT, because I figured it would make a great participant, is maintenance windows.
Yes.
Let's chat about maintenance windows.
I wanted to talk about this again just because it's something that I keep running into every time we have a new customer or hell, even a new system, a new anything. You ask about maintenance windows and you get blank stares. Or, oh yeah, we don't do that here. Or, oh, we just ask for whatever we want. Do you get it? Well, no, but we can ask for whatever we want. Well, that none of those are good answers.
Right.
So let's talk about what good answers are.
So, at a minimum, what is a good maintenance window?
To me, my standard answer has been at a bare minimum 1 hour a month, 4 hours, or sorry, yeah, 1 hour a month, 4 hours a quarter, and then at least like 8 or maybe even 12 hours a year. And that's for regularly scheduled. I don't even need to ask because it's on the calendar already. I mean, obviously communicate, but these are like the standard. You have standard windows that you know you can plan out months in advance. I already know this is when my window lands. This is when the site knows that the window lands. It should never be a big deal. Now, there's always going to be ad hoc windows that you're going to need throughout the month or whatever. This is beyond that. This is just windows that are always there when you need them. And especially that yearly big one, that should be, if I need to bring everything down effectively. That's not always feasible, but
Right.
the equivalent of that.
Now, my response to that is that you should constantly be pushing your systems to not need maintenance windows. You should still have them.
Oh,
Right.
I agree.
This should be the bank that, like, you have the maintenance window, and then you really, really surprise and please everybody in management when you tell them, yeah, we don't need it this year. Right. Of course, you probably want to use it anyway, just so they don't get used to it not being
Well, I would
used.
use it, but and not have an outage during it because everything's highly available. Oh, we dropped one ping this month in our monthly maintenance.
Right.
We'll try to do better next time.
What would you say to people in like the healthcare industry? Right. There's no way that you can say, hey, ER, you got to go offline for 12 hours.
Then you say you don't have enough redundant or resilient systems in place to support that. Because that's what the reality is. And does an ER need extensive IT systems? It does need some.
Depends. Yeah.
Increasingly,
Yeah,
yes.
there definitely
Right.
is.
Right.
But
I mean, to your point, if you are running something that needs to be, that's that critical and needs to be up, why haven't you already thought through that? Right.
correct.
Your billing system can be offline for 12
How
hours.
far do you take that? You know, I mean, how far do you make that redundant? I know I'm kind of getting away from the maintenance window question, but how redundant?
No, it's right. It's right on.
Do you take that because you've got one endpoint with one network adapter, right? And it's plugged into a switch. Well, it doesn't matter how redundant that switch is, that whatever that's plugged into, it needs to reboot for an update or a firmware change or whatever.
That one
That device
endpoint
is
with the
going
one NIC either isn't as important as you think it is, or it's under spec for what its importance is.
Well, if it's a cow
So-
in an OR, like a computer on wheels, like that's
Yeah.
they
Right.
have in the healthcare world, you got a cow in the ER, it's got a NIC in it.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, the typical response is 2, right? They've got a backup.
Yeah.
That's just ready to roll in and come online, or that's the theory. Like
Mhm.
I've worked in healthcare enough to know that like theory and practice are 2 completely different things.
Absolutely.
The theory would be like, no, we're not going to put 2 NICs in this thing, or make the system, redundant firmware and processor, and it's not going to be
But we
SAN level redundancy.
But we can have 2 ports on the wall, one that goes to one closet, that goes to the other,
Right. And I'll say that
or wired and wireless.
I've
Right.
been in enough hospital settings at an age where I was paying attention to know that like they're just not prepped for it. They do some things, but their approach to that is often not everything it could be.
Well, I can speak. I've been in like healthcare for a while, coming over to IT, and there's always there's strangely a lot of parallels between the two realities, in which we generally have a primary that's, let's say, rock solid or very good, and then we have the backup or the redundant that's the weaker cousin that hasn't really been tested out, and so
Yeah.
it's like we have redundancy, and it's like we go talk about maintenance windows, like cool, or we're no problem, we'll take down the primary and the secondary will take over, right? Like, well, in theory, it will.
It's like having backups. If you don't test them, you don't have backups.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
That's absolutely.
I mean, maybe your first outage or your first maintenance window should be to test your redundancy, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go get an hour from your leadership, and this is probably true for everybody. Go get an hour to see if your backup systems work.
I think it was
No harm.
like, Chris, you're kind of covering a topic a little bit earlier when it came to maintenance windows. Is like I like the idea of like you get a consistent cadence. Maybe maintenance window is 1 hour a week from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. local or something like that. It's like just getting that consistent and getting the sort of buy-in from the enterprise as a whole, and then being able to be that evolved where you're like, okay, we actually don't need that maintenance window now, or like to Brian's point, like I feel like a lot of the conversations when it comes with maintenance windows are usually from either bad techs or bad experiences that, we're going to have a maintenance window of 1 hour and then they blow it for like 4 hours and everything's out. It's like never again. And I've been to a couple organizations that have taken that approach. It's like some dummy before you showed up just wrecked the house and they're like, and they can't even touch it with a 20-foot
Yeah.
pole.
Right.
You use work
Absolutely.
maintenance and they freak out.
And that's how sacred
happens.
cows are made.
That happens. I mean, that happens to even the best engineers. I know one on this panel here went to do some networking work in a 4-hour job, turned into an 8-hour job. But so it happens, right? So
Yeah, I mean, the reality is like stuff goes sideways, right?
it does.
So the thing that I've started to lean into around, because when we're talking about maintenance windows, we're talking about change or testing or whatever. The thing that I've started to like just beat the drum on really hard around change is go ahead and take the risk, right? But mitigate the risk. And that's not by planning it to the nines and like just having every contingency covered. It's really simple. Have good testers, have good rollback, right? If you have a good rollback plan, you have a good test plan, you're covered, right? Like do whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is preparation and having the tools to do the job.
Right.
Because with enough preparation and the right tools, things that seem difficult can come off really easy. Like, remember the migration from 925 to 1325?
Yep.
We swung between data centers in different buildings. Some of it was the same hardware. We only had a 15-second outage.
Yeah.
Just because we
Nice.
planned well, we figured out
planned.
exactly what we needed on each side so that
Planned
we
for
could.
weeks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, longer than that, even.
Yeah. Longer than that.
And
That
there
turned
were
out to be a
definitely
great
some-
move. And I got laughed at because I wanted to move one of my sands hooked up to a UPS and roll it on the park.
Yeah. Roll it down the street. Because it was only like 2 blocks away.
Right. I was scared to death to shut the sand down. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there were definitely some clenchy moments, right? Like shutting down the sand, loaded it into a moving truck Gaylord, letting the movers put it on their truck.
Oh, yeah.
Like
That was the worst part. Things that were out of our control.
yeah, that was
Because the stuff in our control, we planned the hell out of.
yeah.
Right.
And
I only
really,
got hired
in
twice.
that whole thing, my part was easy. The longest part was waiting for routing to come up at the new site.
right.
Everything
Oh, yeah.
else was easy.
A lot of that we had pre-done though too. You did a lot of
Yeah.
pre-homework and all that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
was-
And like I had that point-to-point wireless
Yeah,
link,
that
so that I could
AirPod.
just swing everything over. I could split the firewalls and do all kinds of just naughty stuff. But it made it so that we could do that.
right.
So
Yeah.
to speak to Travis's point, right? Because I think we've all been there in those scenarios where, like, for whatever reason, management is gun shy about change and about maintenance windows. What do we say? Like, what's the best advice you could give to somebody watching right now on how to address that? Right? Other than to say, "Well, I'm not that guy," right? Like,
Right.
I think for me, again, pulling some of my my experience from medicine is you kind of sugarcoat things. Like go for a maintenance window that's really tight, and then do a change that is like damn near guaranteed to go perfectly. Something very
Yeah.
small.
Little
You're just kind of
wins.
building up that appetite of like, oh, okay, this is what maintenance feels like. It's small windows, 5 minutes to do an upgrade on something that's not going to be very affected, and then you start kind of ramping up from there. And people get confidence in you, and the maintenance window loses its stigma as this like evil entity that is going to ruin my night.
right. I mean, I'll say this: the software developers have really figured this out. Even if they're not doing CI/CD, if they're doing any kind of regular deployment cadence, they've really gotten the business used to the idea that, like, we're gonna do change on a regular basis, and it's just gonna be part of our practice now. And man, some of that stuff goes south really quick, but the business just kind of gets used to it.
I would say those
Which-
are kind of two different worlds, though. I mean, I've got people I've dealt with at devs. Their general gist is kind of what Facebook says, like move fast and break things. That's very much accepted in their world, but on us for infrastructure, especially for more legacy environments, the attitude is completely inverted. So they break stuff, but they fix it really quickly, and that's acceptable in their half. Our half, depending on the size of the company and the appetite, they might be like, no outage is it acceptable.
Right.
Never
And
break
see,
anything.
one of the things this is one of the arguments that I would make to management. Like, if you allow your developers to move fast and break things, on the condition that they can fix them quickly, like, I've never seen a software fix come out in less than 3 hours, right? If you got the same built-in leeway for your infrastructure changes, like,
It's like,
you'd be like,
come on.
Oh,
okay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, like, it's all
I'd kill for
technology,
that
man.
kind of leeway.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
that,
back in
and
the
that
days,
gets
you
back
would
to,
move.
I don't know if Chris or Rick or whoever said it, like, what do you say to the hesitant executives? Well, sometimes you just gotta do it. You
Yeah.
just gotta be like, well, this is coming sucker. Like,
And you've got to, you've also got to kind of, it's like the budgeting process, right? Ask for way more than you need.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the Scotty School of Engineering.
Right.
yeah,
This is going to be really tough and it's going to take me 4 hours. When you know, worst case scenario, it's going to take 2.
Yeah.
And you'll probably have it done in half an hour to an hour. Under promise, over deliver.
over deliver. Yeah,
And consistently do that, and you'll build that political capital. And eventually, you'll have more people on your side than against.
Yeah.
And you'll
That's
be able
right.
to make those maybe slightly riskier changes.
because eventually the cows come home, no matter what.
To roost.
Eventually, you'll the cows come home to roost. You'll be forced into a maintenance window of some sort, like we're dealing with now,
Yes.
where our our MPLS provider, where we have had notorious with our locations, notorious, outage. We were in 24/7, nonstop, no outages. Well, now we're forced via our sole provider, where we have to schedule 10 locations at a time for an hour outage. That's never been done before.
What?
And now everybody freaks.
Yeah. SD-WAN updates.
Wow.
So now you're forced into it, and now like you are contractually obligated to do this, and you're doing something you've never done before, and so the pain is just that much more because you've ignored that regular cadence of maintenance windows.
All right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
that can be a good way of sort of injecting it in, whether it's by government oversight requiring certain things like some of the mandates that have come down post a couple of previous events, or states requiring it. It's like, okay, we can not do the maintenance window, but for every window you skip, that's like $100,000 that we're going to have to pay in fines. And, eventually you have a big enough fish that will convince them that this is not an option anymore.
Well, and even if you don't have that sword hanging over your head, you have we can pick the maintenance window, or hackers can pick the maintenance window, or equipment failing because it's past the end of its useful life or had something that needed to be done, picks a maintenance window.
Or
And they don't give a crap about your weekends and nights and vacation schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Pick
they don't.
pick
They
your
don't give a
technical
crap.
debt leftover, whatever, and say this is going to cause a window, right?
Right.
This is going to cause an outage. Do you want to take it during the week, or do you want to take it on the Sunday? When do you want your catastrophic failure?
Well,
So
would you rather have it be a catastrophic failure, or would you rather have it be a planned event?
right.
Yes.
I think one of the things that happens to a lot of engineers, I know it certainly did to me early in my career, is that I did underestimate my change windows. I was like, okay, I think I can get it done in this amount of time, so I put the change in for that. Not recognizing that ultimately what people care about isn't so much the length of the change, it's that you
What to
have
expect.
set the expectation, right?
Right.
So you can go into a change meeting or planning meeting and be like, I'm planning this change for 8 hours. And they look at you with really huge eyes and you go, I think it's going to take me 2. And they go, why don't you put it in for 2? And you're like, well, here's the eventualities. And they go, okay, I can approve an 8-hour change knowing that that's the outside. And then when you get to it and like you end up at 7 hours or 8 hours, they're like, well, okay, we approved that. We discussed it. It's shocking how like congratulatory that you are in those scenarios. Like, yeah, I thought it was going to take me like an hour and a half, but it took me 8, and I scheduled it for 7.5. They're like, awesome, you totally hit the mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this really goes into like the soft skills of like who you're preaching to, because like when Brian, you mentioned it's going to take you like maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, but say 4. It's like sometimes there's people that you're dealing with. They're like, they hear the 4 and then just like the fuse pops. But if you said 3 or like 2.5, finding that right amount to kind of over under promise and over deliver. It's like that. There's thresholds that are just too much, and then the conversation just kind of shuts out from then.
Right.
I think
Well,
just knowing your
and even
audience.
those people, I mean, most of the time they can be reasoned with. And with the explanations that have already been given. Like, hey, that 4 hour mark, that's like the outside number. I want that number communicated because that's like the worst case scenario. I don't want to tell you 2 and it end up taking 4.
Yep.
So I'm telling you 4, I'm expecting it to take 2. It may even take less. So just, I don't know. I mean, some people you can't reason with, but that's going to be difficult either way.
You know, I've never
I-
experienced that in my long career of running
Never.
into people I can't, you can't negotiate
Yeah.
with.
I mean, there's one thing to be said for like kind of sugarcoating things, but then there's something else to be said for like sugarcoating your own noose. You're not doing yourself a favor,
Well, it goes back to
and
Jesse's
you're not doing
point,
them a favor.
right?
Well-
What Jesse said a little while ago. It's so you got to be able. How do you tell that to the C-level or whatever? And you just have to be honest and say this is how it is, and deal with the repercussions. Because at the end of the day, right? If you don't do your change, if you capitulate to the shorter window or no window or whatever, and something goes terribly wrong, you're still the guy. You guys, the 5 of us here, we're still the guys that have to clean that mess up, right?
Yeah.
So it is absolutely imperative that you're able to work with, and if you're in a situation where you can't work with the company to set these kinds of expectations, chances are you're in the wrong place anyway. It's time to rethink where you're at. So,
Well, you need the skills and the vocabulary to speak their language, because they don't care that the firewall needs a new doohickey. They want to know what the risks are, like in their terms, and they want to know what the rewards are of going through with the maintenance window are in their terms.
right.
So it's learning that language, even though it may as well be Greek, especially when you're starting off in IT. I mean, it takes a long time to develop those skills. Most people that tend towards IT do not have those skills naturally.
That's correct. But also on the other side of that, Brian, is that if you're just starting out in IT, you're not the person that's talking to the C-levels to start with, right? So it's somebody else.
Absolutely.
But it is
Hopefully.
incumbent
Yeah.
upon that new person to pay attention and listen. And it's also it's incumbent upon the more seasoned professional to mentor the new people coming in and say, this is how you deal with C-levels and all this. So, and you're right. I think you're kind of getting down to like it's our neck, right? We're the one that put the noose around it, right? So I understand. So it is kind of our own fault if we're not prepared and we don't know how to talk to the C-level management teams and whoever we need to explain things to. It is on us to learn how to do those things.
Right.
It's appropriate setting of expectations.
Right.
That's what a lot of it comes down to.
Well, here's kind of an open question. Maybe let's call this almost like an ethics check. Is how truthful do you be to, like, when you present the doom and gloom of missing something? Not to say that you should straight up lie and say that the sky will fall down, but
Yeah.
there are some places in which you kind of gotta maybe massage it up a little. It's going to be a little bit worse than it actually is to prevent that sort of snowball effect. Because there can be systems that are just like they're fine until they're not, and it's like,
Right.
well, it could be fine. It'll be fine for a little bit, and if you sell it like that, or you give that sort of ambiguity,
They hear, "Oh, it's fine."
oh, it's fine. Yeah.
So
Fire.
let me
Yeah.
tell you how I handle that. Domain controllers, right? When you're doing work with an Active Directory domain, 99% at this point, probably 99.9% of the time, you can do work with an Active Directory domain and there are no issues. But that like 1% or 0.1% is like just burn it all down, right? It's awful. And every
And
time
I know
I
for
do,
a fact that you've been through all that, right?
Oh, yeah. right. Every time I communicate about a domain change, like if you're using anything kind of like ITIL, you've got a risk and a reality kind of statement that you're going to put in there. I always put it as like, the likelihood of this occurring is really low, but let's be clear that the core risk that we have here is super high.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not sugarcoat it at all. Like, there is no sugarcoating it. And if they're not clear on it, and I think they're not clear on it, I beat them up on it, right? Like, and then they go, well, should we be doing this? I'm like, okay, now you understand the severity. Let's talk about the reality.
The reality of the situation, yeah.
Well, then when you have like that kind of split, I think that's where things get really tricky and experience goes like, well, it's a low chance but high impact should that chance occur. So, and I think a lot of people will go, okay, then medium, like, maybe.
No.
Or pick whatever one's going to be the most sellable, which could be the low. Well, it probably won't happen. Like, but if it does, you're screwed.
Right.
Like, okay, which one do you kind of pick or lean into?
Well, if it's say a high, it should come along with a package of these are my contingency plans. This is what I'm going to do if that happens. This is how we pull that baby out of the fire.
Right. I've got the vendor on standby. Already got a ticket.
Have a
in
preemptive
before.
case open. They're waiting. I have a case number, just waiting to call. And everything's lined up. I have thought of everything I can think of.
Right. No, I mean, those are the things you do, right? You talk about risk, you talk about severity, you talk about risk, and you talk about mitigation. And when you that's the package that you have to present. And if you're contemplating this, right, and you figure out like, oh yeah, I wouldn't do this, or like you think you're going to get pushback, maybe that's an indication that you haven't done enough homework, right? Like, I've totally been like, all right, I got this change coming. Let me start to plan this out. And I look at it, I'm like, oh man. Yeah, it turns out I'm not ready to do this.
Yeah.
Guess I'll
This
submit
just turned
this next
into a
week.
big thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable take, Chris, because I've kind of been in those positions where I'm like, okay, I got this, and then it's like, oh, it's just a little thing, and you start kind of like presenting almost to yourself, and then you're like, what if this? And you look in, and you're like, ooh, okay, that would have been a miss, or would have looked egg on my face at the presentation. So, yeah, kind of sniff checking yourself is a good idea.
Chris is actually really good at that. I've seen Chris. I mean, it's my 2 minutes of sucking up to Chris. But here,
All right, clock started.
When I first started working with Chris years and years and years ago, one of the things that he would do to potential customers, and I'd say, well, let's do your statement of work. And I'm thinking it's going to be a page and a half, 2 pages. And he would come out with these little novellas, right? And I'm like, dude, seriously, whatever. But I learned that what he was doing was covering every aspect and every base and all that. And it was actually better in the long run to let Chris have it and just do what you do and whatever. So that translates into, having a really good plan and ferreting out any issues as you talk through this, and you give that plan to one of your coworkers and say, here, just sanity check time. Let's do this, right? So, okay, now I'm done. My 2 minutes is over. Sorry.
Well, thanks, Rick. That was
quicker than 2 minutes.
Kind and generous praise. I appreciate it. You don't need to do that again for the next 10 years, just like last time.
That was probably 10, 12, 14 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So before we move on, I just want to let you know what ChatGPT says when I asked, how often should you have a maintenance window? It gave me this long verbose thing, and I thought that was annoying. So first I asked it to respond like an emo teenager. And I quote, ugh, like, why do we even have to have maintenance windows? It's so annoying and it ruins my vibe. I mean, can't they just fix stuff without interrupting my life? And why do they always have to schedule it during my peak social media scrolling hours? It's like they're trying to torture me. I just want to live my life without these stupid maintenance windows getting in the way. It's like the universe is conspiring against me. Sigh.
Holy
wow,
cow.
that's...
Are you sure that's ChatGPT and not one of my actual users?
Yeah, I was going to say, this does not feel as theoretical as it should.
Wait for it. I asked it to reply as a septuagenarian.
Oh boy.
hold on.
Please do it. Get off my lawn. That's all I'm asking ChatGPT.
Right? Yes. I wanna
Well,
hear-
my dear, I believe that maintenance windows are a necessary part of keeping our systems and applications running smoothly. It is important to ensure that any updates or repairs are done in a timely manner to prevent any major issues from arising. As for the frequency, blah blah blah, it's that wasn't as sexy. It did give me a second emo response though, which is essentially the same thing. Yeah. So there you go,
Response
ChatGPT.
Response wasn't bad, actually.
No,
I mean,
it's
yeah.
not. Don't ask it for anything really technical. It will give you a surface blush, but yeah. So ChatGPT, our sixth contributor tonight. All right. I think we got a good point to segue on to our next topic, unless any of you all have anything else you want to
I
talk
think Brian
about.
might
on
have
Windows.
I have something. It's not exactly related, but it's almost related to the maintenance windows. It's something you would potentially do in a maintenance window. It's something that we actually talked like at length about, especially William, in our chat over the last week, and that is taking your systems all the way down and then bringing them back up. Can you do it?
I cannot.
You should be able to,
I have
and
a,
you should have a run book to be able to shut everything down and then bring everything up from scratch.
I have a run book. I can do it. But I know you guys. I don't know if all you guys know it, but Brian,
You
I
should
have
try
told
it
you.
some weekend.
I have an alpha that still says deck on it.
Yep.
It was purchased in 1995,
Okay.
and
Don't shut that off because it
no,
won't come back up.
Still has all the disk arrays and whatever, and they are SCSI drives. It's not the Dizzy drives, thank God. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm scared to death to shut that thing down. So, in a normal world, like at a former company, I suggested that we do that one on Christmas, and I got shot down because they didn't want to do it. But I thought Christmas Day is an excellent day to do it. At the time, I had zero family, so
Yeah.
right, so there was no need for me to celebrate that day, and it's something I wanted to do, and because it was a great day to do it. I think I agree that you should be able to shut everything down all the way down and bring it all the way back.
At least know how and know that you can. Because otherwise, I mean, this goes back into engineering yourself into a corner. This goes back into so many things that we've talked about already. But just the practical application thereof. Because if you have to send guys with angle grinders out to the front door to let people in, you done fucked up. Something is wrong.
Right.
Don't be Facebook.
Yes. Do not be Facebook.
We do. We do.
All right. So, we talked a little bit about what it requires to be able to do this, which is a good segue, I think, into red flags for the new guys / things they don't tell you in IT school. So,
Are
let's
we
start
taking
with
a break first, Brian?
oh, no, not
We're
yet.
at the 40-minute. If you need to run,
Good. Oh no, it's
Or-
good. I thought you said on the hour, 9 o'clock. Or on
Oh,
the
no.
hour on time.
the hour mark.
Mark.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're good.
on,
Full send.
on Ops Oops Origami standard time.
Yeah. Yes. Because we start at the half hour because that's what
Or-
works for us.
Or thereabouts.
Or thereabouts. Yeah, we're a little bit late
Ish.
this time. Yeah, so anybody that's watching at probably about the 1 hour mark for being live. So at about 9:30 Central Standard Time, we'll probably take a 2-minute bio break.
Central Daylight Time.
Yes. Yeah, whatever. No, CST, it's always whatever the daylight or whatever the offset is.
That's not how that works. works. But okay.
Yes.
So,
This is what an old married couple looks like, kids.
Yes. Yes.
at UTC -5,
There you go.
9:30 p.m.
Yes.
We will take a break.
Probably do a 2-minute, and you get
Yeah.
to see the other version of the intro video.
It's so pretty.
Yes. You like
So-
that?
What do we not tell the newbies when they show up, or what does the industry as a whole not tell them that we
the
have
industry-
to break it to them?
The industry as a whole. So I'm going to start off with soft skills are required, right? Like
Yes.
you're going to need them guaranteed within the first 3 months of your career, probably within the first month, maybe the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, but that's
I would say that's
the most unqualified people coming in the fucking pipeline on that.
I didn't even have soft skills until 6 months ago. So,
What do you mean 6 months ago? Are you sure?
well, that's when the journey started.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Because my first couple of 5, 6 years, 8 years in being in this business, I had zero soft skills, none whatsoever. So, but I started in the early '90s though too. So
Right.
Yeah.
nobody had soft skills back then.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you were able to just be the crusty IT guy down in the basement that nobody had to talk to. It was a different time.
Right.
right. Like there's a reason Saturday Night Live did a skit on Nick Burns, your company's computer guy, right? Like that was common enough shared experience that people found it super relatable. And like a ton of IT people were like, either were like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, or we're like, well, what was wrong with that guy?
Yeah.
Um,
Or worse, we're like, oh, that's who I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
right, right.
You know what? What wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people that were coming into the business saw that and thought, well, that must be how we're all supposed to be.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily to that, comical extreme.
Right.
Rick, that was actually my experience because I was on track. I was working for Deloitte and Touche in the early 2000s. I was like 16 or something at the time, and I had an offer for a full-time gig as their sysadmin, network admin, because the people there loved me. But I saw how the community as a whole in the late 90s, early 2000s, that IT, no soft skills, very rude, self-righteous, generally an a-hole, right, usually, but like pretty cruel. And I was like, I don't know if I want to stick around. And I did the military for a while, went with rescue, but coming back almost just a little bit over 15, 17 years later, it's like, oh, this is all changed. The soft skills used to be like, we don't even care, like get rid of that crap. And now
Why are you talking to the customer? Just tell them what they got to do.
Yeah, and now coming back, I was like, oh, this is nice. Like, people actually care about soft skills now, and you can't just, go to your users and give them the bird and then say, figure it out, stupid. Like,
Right. Yeah. What the
that's
F were you thinking when you pushed that button? What the hell? You know how much work I have to do? Why are you bothering me with this? What were you thinking?
Yeah.
You can't get on with the end user and tell them like, okay, what I need you to do is find a cardboard box and pack your computer in it and send it back to the manufacturer because you aren't allowed to have one.
It's also a part that's maybe a little bit sad coming back because I'm so jaded from my time as a paramedic. It's like, yeah, I get to tell them to go piss off, and it's like, you can't do that anymore. I'm like, yeah, it's probably for the best, but
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to a little bit.
So I don't know if you guys have ever read any of the Bastard Operator from Hell series.
Yep. I was just going to mention that.
Yeah.
No.
But,
Oh, God. Travis, you need to Google that.
yeah, you do. That is
all right.
Simon. What was Simon's last name? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Something with an
Hold on.
I? No.
I got the.
I don't know.
Oh,
But-
let's see if ChatGPT has it.
But that's
Oh, it
you need to read up and start at the beginning, the early
It's-
stuff. The older
Yeah, it's a lot of reading, but because it's almost like it's not really a blog type layout, but I don't know. It was basically almost daily or weekly entries
It
for
was a-
like 15 years.
it was a journal type of thing.
Yeah, journal. That's kind of what it was.
And yeah,
Simon Travaglia.
and Travaglia. There you go.
Travaglia. Yeah.
He was that stuff was so funny, but what made it funny, it wasn't that far off the mark. Right?
It wasn't.
Until he started killing people.
I mean,
Yeah.
fictionally.
Yes,
Yeah.
fictionally.
Yeah,
Fictional.
yeah.
No, my favorite quote from that whole series is still this one right here.
I use that.
What was your
probably
username? You have to
I'll
put
use
the
that.
emphasis on the was.
Yeah, what was your user ID? Yeah.
See, I always read that and I'm like, oh, he totally emphasizing the was. And then I thought about it a little bit. The BOFH would not have put the emphasis on it because he didn't care that much about the people he was talking to.
Oh
He'd have been
god.
like, what was your username?
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
I see some
but
of this.
anyway, yeah. So, again, I derailed the topic, so my bad.
No, it's fine because I actually was going to bring it up because I figured Travis was probably the only one that hasn't actually read it.
yeah. Get yourself a nice hot cup of tea on a Saturday, curl up on the couch and
Get
read
a
the
box of
BOFH.
Kleenex, not
Yeah.
because you're going to be crying, but because you're going to be laughing so hard you will be crying. So
You may want to pick up on some adult diapers just so like when you pee yourself from
Got my
laughter.
supply, so I'm solid, I think.
Right. Um,
I
so
pulled up a couple of the snippets over here, and it's
yeah,
definitely my jam.
It's exactly
reminds
what we
me-
were talking about.
Yeah.
It
And then,
reminds me
the-
so
the-
much of doing the medical side. It's just like there's so many parallels of just like people do like, you did what? You plugged what into this? Like, yeah, I just smashed the things together. You know, reminds me of my time in the
Now, do you
medicines,
guys
like
remember
doing stuff like that.
back in the day when it was, 10 base 2 or, whatever, you had this vampire tapish thing.
Vampire
that would-
taps, yeah.
Yeah, but not necessarily. This was for station cables, but it was a big, thick, whatever, and it would terminate. You had your Ethernet bus, and it was terminated at the end, and you would take this little gizmo and plug it in the middle of the bus, and it would interrupt and run through. But so you didn't have to terminate at every PC, right? So whatever. And we went from that rope to twisted pair. And people would move their computers around and they would pull something out and they would just stuff it in whatever hole they could find. And it would be so hard not to pull a Simon on these people. And,
You
and just go
stuck
ahead
the
and
what
shove
in
it
the what?
shove it in the mains and just
So-
let Darwin sort it out.
So there's another piece of advice for the noobs. No matter how much you've been prepared for the crazy unpredictability of end users, you
It's
will be
worse.
surprised
Yeah.
constantly. I'm still surprised at some of the things like, wait, you did what? Oh yeah, I wanted to preserve the document, so I deleted it. Like,
But it
Yep.
worked last time.
can you repeat that
It
back to
auto
yourself?
recovered and it was better than it was before.
Right, like,
Whenever you think you have a process that's idiot proof, the universe spontaneously generates a better idiot.
Brian, I was just gonna say, I heard a phrase a while ago. It's like, no matter how idiot-proof you make a system, God will build a better idiot. And it's like, why has that been so true? It's like, all right, this thing's rock solid. There's no way you can mess this up. And just not even like the most technically savvy. It's usually just the most regular person who never expects. It's just like they escape the guardrails and just find the root and just rip it out. You're like, I could not have engineered an angrier person to ruin this system that you've done better than I could have ever imagined. It defies logic to me.
so
Nice.
the other thing that I think is important to recognize is like we're all told in IT that like it's a computer, it only does what you tell it to, garbage in, garbage out, right? The reality is like in IT, sometimes stuff just doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
right? Like back in the Twisted Pair Twin Axe days, like right after we moved away from 10 base 2, I was doing work and I had a pair of computers that would not sit next to each other They had to have another host between them. I also had a pair of clients that had to be in the right order. Like one had to be like downline of the other. Otherwise, they would not work. And when you're talking about those networks, the network would just be like either one of them would be offline or the network would just be down. I was mind blown. And this is early in my career. I'm like, why is that? And my senior tech looked at me and said, sometimes shit's weird.
Yeah. I mean,
And that was it.
entropy, even though it's still ones and zeros, entropy is still a thing. I mean, think how many millions, tens of millions of lines of code. Like nobody has the brain processing capabilities to understand it all. So there's going to be like kind of like, well, I don't know what happened, but we did this and it worked.
Right. And like, no matter how much you want it to make sense, it's not always gonna.
Well, I'll almost give like a slight bit of contention to that because I've had discussions with folks at least that are, I'm a big fan of like, we do computer science. Everything we do should use the scientific method. Yes, there's always going to be probably some gremlins or ghosts in the system every once in a while, but the vast majority, and this is all for newbies too, like you should have a method, there should be science. It works on physics. It is not
Be a
non-Newtonian
Ghostbuster.
physics where the Wi-Fi escapes reality and then goes into another dimension. No,
Right. No,
it's
it's not
science.
magic.
Yes.
Right.
Everything in IT, be it networking, systems, whatever, it's all deterministic. If it appears to not be deterministic, you don't understand the rules.
Right. And like, I guess that's what I'm saying is like, you're going to get things that don't seem to make sense. And
Absolutely.
at some point, you just need to accept that sometimes you don't have the time to make sense of them. Right. I had two hosts that didn't like to sit next to each other. It was an office that had 4 hosts. So I didn't let them sit next to each other. Could I have like figured out exactly what it was about the 2 cards? Yeah. I could have spent like 6 weeks figuring out what about these 2 twin axe cards was incompatible being like direct subsequent hosts on the chain. Not worth the time. So now I hear what you're saying. And like, definitely from a troubleshooting standpoint, if your answer is, oh, that's the magic of IT, you're probably doing something wrong.
Well, you
Yeah,
probably don't
and
understand
there
well
is-
enough.
There is mysterious stuff that does indeed happen that actually you can explain after a while with enough digging and enough whatever. But and this actually was a thing back in the mid to late 90s. This thing called tin whiskers. Do you guys remember ever hearing anything about that?
No.
You would do yourself a favor and look that up. It's a fascinating thing where dissimilar in because of the tin and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know what
Tin
you're talking
whiskers,
about.
yep.
And
Yeah.
what did you say, Chris?
Tin whiskers. Yeah.
Yeah. Would shoot off and whatever, and you have this short, and all of a sudden your machine's acting like, like it needs Adderall. And it took me weeks to convince a boss that, hey, this is a problem and we are suffering this problem. This is what's going on. I really believe this is what's going on. And finally, it was with Digital Equipment Corporation and their PCs and the solder that they were using, and got it sorted out. But yeah,
So,
mysterious things will have a reality in physics, based in physics, that you can eventually prove. And I bet if you gave it enough time, Chris, why this machine had to be here and not there, you would have figured it out.
right.
But was it worth the time?
No.
Right. So, Rick, you mentioned tin whiskers. Like that was a thing. And so the tin whiskers grew relatively quickly. There was a period where like there was enough material and the solder was of a specific quality and whatnot. Like those tin whiskers would grow. But like I've periodically checked back into it. Tin whiskers is a thing down at like the nano scale.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen as fast,
Right.
but your dope silicon products, which is like basically all of computing today, are doing that too. Like, you want to know why a processor starts to get flaky after 15, 20 years? At least part of it is tin whiskers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Which-
surprise me. Anyway, that just sparked in my head, and I thought, you know what? That's an example of what you were talking about. You know, and
Yeah.
and I was lucky enough to have somebody that I was working for that eventually started to listen to me, and you know, one of the few times I actually got it right. So
Right.
I've got
mean,
I've got
Did you
something
mark
that
on
I
the
find-
calendar?
yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
still have the calendar too, because 30 years
I've
ago.
got something that's kind of relative or relevant since I'm coming back into the field. I've always been a big fan of like choose your source right, whether that's a person, a magazine, a book, an online course, whatever. Because when you're new to it and people are telling you something, you have no idea whether that's right or wrong. It will take time to figure that out. So paid services can be generally better depending on the cost, but you know, if you have a mentor, you're working at a new place, or you have someone and you start kind of smelling BS, be careful. Just choose your master wisely.
Yeah. So, interesting enough, thinking about this topic, I took a couple of quick notes. And one of the things I wrote down was, if you're new in this industry, the first thing to know is you're not going to know everything, right? You're going to learn the most from a mentor, right? A good mentor. And one of the ways you will know a good mentor is that they will tell you they don't have an answer. And they'll send you looking. And man, if they send you to go look in a publication, paid source, whatever, do it. Like, particularly early in your career, like that kind of, when somebody who's got a ton of experience tells you, I don't know, and that's a really good question, and you should go find out, they're basically giving you carte blanche to go research. They'll probably even cover for you.
Well, hopefully
Right.
they'll give you kind of, like look southeast, kind of like
Yeah.
that, like kind of a general
And that give you
bearing.
kind of a nudge in the general.
Yeah,
direction.
kind of like, well, it kind of feels like this
Right.
way. Like
This is what I would Google,
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
because that's definitely a skill, and it's not one you learn in school. How to Google effectively.
Yeah.
You need to know the magic words that'll get you the the answers you need.
That comes from years of trying to do stuff in Alta Vista,
Yeah.
you know, Yahoo back in the day. And who was the other one? Real
Ask
Ask
Jeeves, baby.
Jeeves
Ask
kind of
Jeeves.
puts in there.
I never used that one. There was a couple more where you actually had to do Boolean searches and weirdness and whatever to try to get stuff. So I think that we have actually, for the new guys, we've done new people a disservice by making information so easy to get to and answering questions when, you know, I think you're right. Go push them in the direction where they.
Yeah. It's like
Figure
walking to
out-
the library without the
figure
Dewey
out.
Decimal System. You're not getting very far.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an interesting analogy, because, like, as a lifelong library user, like, I know roughly where to go in the library for things. Also, I'm a total library geek. Like, I can walk in like, oh, this section. All right, I need to go one aisle over, right? But yeah, I can't push my kids in the library and like, hey, go find me a book about this. No shot.
No, your
Like,
kids.
here's an elaboration on the library analogy is when you're first there, you don't necessarily know where the nonfiction section is and where the fiction section is. So people will go into the fiction section. You're like, here's how to do that. It's like, no, man, that's a forum post by some crackpot. That is absolutely not the right answer.
But come on, Travis. Nirvana is just a checkbox away.
Well, and in IT, every answer is temporally relevant. If it's a 10-year-old post,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the likelihood of it having your answer or the correct answer, even if they have the identical problem, is pretty damn low.
but it's
Mhm.
not a bad place to start to try to understand where you're at, though. I mean, I don't
Maybe,
necessarily.
or it could be a red herring.
It could be, but I don't discount posts because they're old. I don't.
I mean, the
It
internet's a treasure map, so you have to like learn how to read the clues.
Right.
You know what? Actually, that's a great analogy. The internet is a treasure map, and the older the treasure map, the less likely that it points to real treasure anymore. Right? Like, not saying it can't, but I'd much rather have. I'm with Brian. I'd much rather have a recent post pointing me to it. If I don't have anything else, yeah, I'm going to follow that trail. Because what else do you have to go on?
Right.
You're not on the internet
and don't
searching
be
for
that
no reason.
guy. Don't be the guy that asks a question like on Stack Exchange or Reddit or whatever, and then responds back, "Oh, never mind, I found the answer,"
Without posting
and then deuces
anything.
out without a single clue.
Yeah. As to
I
what the
figured it
answer-
out. Never mind.
I figured it out. Thanks for your help, guys. Yeah.
Reminds me, there's like a Bill Burr skit that he says, like the best way to find the right answer is to adamantly post the wrong answer and have people flame you.
Ooh.
No, you idiot! It's actually this IP. Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah,
That's
actually a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Note to
Thanks for
self.
that. Devote
You-
1 hour a week to posting wrong answers to get better ones.
the more elite the person is, the more angry they get that someone posts, and maybe get some friends to like upvote or give a plus to your wrong answer, so they'll have something to really rage rally against.
Oh yeah, yeah, I like it.
True.
I
Little
like it.
social engineering. There's some newbies.
And if you had an almost right answer, those people probably wouldn't even bother answering or might give a quick yes or no. But if you post just an adamant wrong answer, they will go into such detail about why you're a moron. And this is exactly why and how you are
Yep.
wrong. And this is how to do it.
Works every time. It's like a technical manual for free. Just bam, bam, bam.
Right on. No, I'm
Oh,
gonna.
this is why you should do a flat/16 network everywhere you go.
Slash
Rick,
16.
you're so stupid. You should be segmenting with firewalls and you'd put them in this position. God, you're so
Yep.
stupid.
Flat eights, man.
Okay.
Flat
Yes.
eights.
Okay. That's good. Yep. Border nodes. Yep. That's right.
You don't use
Flat
/8s that you don't
fours.
even own.
Right.
Just start at 1 and work your way up.
Yeah, there you go.
Brian /4s and just don't let the networks route. What could go wrong?
Hey, funny story. I like the number 7. I made a 7 network at the house, and sometimes things wouldn't work, and I'd never realize you're not really supposed to use that in
Yeah.
your private space.
Could have used
So-
10.7.
What you really got to do, Travis, is you got to put it on. You got to make it your public, and then broadcast it on BGP.
Oh, you need
you'd be stomped pretty quick on that.
Yeah, so whoever you're peering with will very quickly figure it out.
Yeah, it's not your stuff.
Hold
So-
on. GPT, how can I host a 7/?
You'd have to have an AS number to begin with,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then like
I mean,
the filtering.
it's somebody
like,
to peer to.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then man, you'd be kicked off the internet so fast to make that spin. Yeah.
And like carriers are
Like-
usually actually pretty lenient between each other, but they're gonna filter anybody that's not.
Didn't China
A big
have
carrier.
that? Like there was an accidentally, or I don't think it was intentional, but someone accidentally advertised.
China
like, a
has done that.
massive
Iran
network.
has done that. Multiple like nation states have done that. Where they were trying to basically black hole traffic internally, but they ended up putting it in their public tables and just killing everybody. Like I think Iran, like all of YouTube was routing through Iran for like 8 hours or something, or maybe it was only like 4 or 6 hours, but
all right,
it was something stupid like that.
you ready? ChatGPT. How can I host a 7/8 at my house And then I asked it, now answer like an angry Russian hacker.
Oh, jeez.
So here we go. Ha! Hosting 7/8 at your house, comrade? You must be joking. That address range is not something you can just claim for yourself like it's a bag of potatoes at the market. It's reserved by IANA. And if you try to use it without proper authorization, you'll be in big trouble. And believe me, you don't want to get on the wrong side of the authorities. Besides, even if you somehow manage to get your hands on that IP address range, hosting it at your house would be a fool's errand. It's a massive block of addresses that would require a complex network infrastructure to manage. And even then, you would be exposing yourself to all sorts of security risks. So my advice to you, my friend, is to stick to the legitimate ways of hosting your website or service. And don't even think about messing around with things you don't understand. Unless, of course, you want to end up in Siberia.
That is an excellent answer.
That was
Only I had
like
ChatGPT.
like a sack of potatoes at the market. Yeah.
All right. On that note, we are going to take an approximate 2-minute break.
Time for a break.
Y'all can do that. So we're going to do the variant that
Comrade
is
GPT.
Comrade GPT.
Comrade GPT.
Soror.
All right. See y'all in about 2 minutes. All right. I'm back. No one else is. That's okay. Now I realize, yeah. Aurora St. Croix. Comrade GPT. That is an excellent.
That's a great description.
Mm-hmm.
That went
So-
fast.
I think
Yeah.
tonight I'm gonna take it easy and just do a little bourbon cream.
Bourbon cream. Oh,
Bourbon cream.
With my little throw a little root beer in it.
that's an excellent. It comes out like a root beer float.
It's wonderful.
Yes.
Yep. And I actually, we went camping a few years ago. I made these with ice cream.
Oh,
How was it?
You and
Vaguely.
you and Mrs. Ether.
I vaguely remember.
I like the ASMR bottle opening, Rick.
Yeah.
It was excellent.
Okay, I'm gonna be really silly here. What the hell is SMR?
ASMR.
ASMR.
What does ASMR? Hold on.
Audio stimulation meridian response.
Okay.
Something like that.
You know what? I no longer answer questions, I now just chat GPT.
Oh. All right. I think it's audio
You got it.
stimulation.
Yep.
Meridian
Autonomous
response.
sensory meridian response.
Oh,
It's
I
a
was real
tingling
close.
sensation that some people experience in response to certain triggers, such as soft whispers, tapping sounds, or the gentle rustling of leaves. Or, for some people,
Is this
the
tapping
sound
even
of it-
coming through?
Yeah.
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 Wait, is this beard rustling coming through?
Ew.
Yeah.
Oh, well, cheers.
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 Oh, that's great. I think we need to have Aurora on the
Love you,
program.
Aurora.
Do we know Aurora?
Uh-huh.
Wait, here's some good ASMR.
It's
Hold on. Did you get that?
no, it's really not.
And I don't regret a thing. Thank you.
Oh.
For a bunch of weirdos trying to get the rocks off.
Nope. Ooh.
Audio, yes, close.
Ooh, nice play on words.
Yeah. It's a play on something.
Yeah.
You know, I had
Okay.
experience when I was growing up that had ASMR, and I was just like, I never knew what it was. It never had a name until maybe 10 years ago. I was like, oh, that's what that is.
And then
I
Travis
see it
figured
floating
out.
around,
"Oh,
you know, where,
that's
you know,
my
there's
kink."
YouTube videos that are like whatever, and I'm like, I'm scared to even, you know, because I had coworkers at a former company that said, "Hey, go here," and I'm still having nightmares over it. So I don't look at that stuff anymore. So
It's weird because it's like the feeling is hard to explain for people who haven't done it, but the people who make videos that try to like trigger that response, they are so friggin' weird, man. It just goes right off the rails pretty fast.
That's exactly the people who are into autoerotic asphyxiation say.
Just don't David Carradine yourself with audio.
All right. So, bringing us back on topic.
Yeah, what are we
Yes.
talking about now, Mr. Chris?
Mhm.
Well, we can hit the.
Hmm.
We got two directions.
Solid
we can go.
advice.
That is absolutely solid advice. Never trust your coworkers giving you mysterious links.
Never
Right.
trust a fart, never trust a link.
So let's talk about red flags. This time with employers.
Boy.
Oh, yeah.
This is inherently misguided because it's real hard to say no early on in your career.
It is. And what are some things that you can suss out in the interview process that might point these out? What are the like code words they use? See, there are
so-
some that can be used both ways. Like some can be like say, "Oh, we're all family here. We all work hard and play hard." That just means we're gonna take advantage of you for
Yeah.
That means we're gonna.
you're gonna be salary and be working 80 hours a week.
Yes.
Or they can actually mean it. So
Right.
it's like a bow tie of red flags.
Yeah.
So
One
like that can
que-
be red flag or green flag, right? So the way you suss that one out is you say, "Really? Awesome. Who can I talk to?
Yeah.
Which of your staff members can I talk to?"
The answer should be, well, anyone you want. Let's go for a walk.
Right. And if
Yeah.
they don't give you that answer, if they're like, this
Well,
one,
everybody's busy right now. Or let me
Right.
take you over to Bob.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
Here, sit down with Bob. Shoot the shit for a while.
ooh, other red flags. Interview by committee.
Ooh.
I'm not saying that like having one or two people in an interview room is bad. What I'll say is that interview by committee is either some kind of weird technical panel, which fine, or is like, do you fit with our weird set of hobbies? And if you don't, it's really important for us to know that.
Interview
You
by
probably don't
kind
want
of
to be on
speaks
this.
to
depends on your
the kind of behavior, right? And because I've done committee panels, Chris, and it was very much like a firing squad. It was like 1 versus 8. Like, really? You're gonna do this
Right.
already?
8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
they,
I
it
was-
was
also
a firing
depends
squad.
on what level you're interviewing for. Right? So if it's like your very first IT job and you're interviewing for a desktop technician or a help desk position and you've got 8 people, 5 people, whatever in there in the interview, I would say that's a huge red flag, right?
Mhm.
So, but if you're interviewing for a director position or an IT management position of some sort, and you've got 3 or 4, maybe even 5 of the stakeholders in the business that really want to, see if there's a good fit, I don't see that as a real problem. Going in,
If it's the second or third interview, well,
Yeah.
if something goes to like 5 interviews, that's
Yeah.
a red flag
that's
itself.
another red
But
flag. I
No.
think 3 at the
2,
most.
I
maybe
will say-
3.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say like for a director level position, I think
Yeah.
a 3, 4, 5 interview series, as
Nah.
long as they're within an hour, is reasonable.
5,
as long
no
as they aren't
fucking
the
way.
same
They don't know what
person.
the hell they're doing. It's going to be a
That may be true.
nightmare place to work with.
So
Yeah, I'm a 3
That's my
strike
thing
you're out
about-
rule. That's for
that's
me.
my thing about
Yeah.
interview by committee, right? Like, know who your decision makers are. It's business, man. Like, this isn't a committee.
Yeah, either you have the right people in the room or not. There might have to be like an initial interview, and I'm talking like a higher level position. Let's say the hypothetical director level position. There may be basically a screening interview, maybe even over Zoom. Okay, fine. Now there should be one by probably 1, maybe 2, like direct stakeholders, like the people that would be immediately above you. Then maybe a third one that is wider, because a director level position, that is an important position to hire for.
Sure.
Okay, maybe have someone from the C-suite, maybe multiple even, if they even care.
Are we kind of preaching to the like ultra minority here, though? I mean, honestly, if you're
that's-
interviewing for director level, it's like you're
No.
Sure.
you
But-
should have your shit figured out by now.
But at the same time, if it's an entry level position, they want you to do like 3, 4, 5 interviews.
Yeah. In front of
No,
multiple
that should be a
people.
red flag.
Yeah.
Yes,
Entry level. Just are you are
the
you a moron? I can tell.
True entry level, a screening, and you're hired. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out later.
Yeah,
Right.
bring
The
'em in.
entry level where you're like a desktop technician or whatever, there should be the HR interview and the technical interview. And
You know what, Rick?
you're done.
I don't even think you should have a technical interview. You should have an HR interview and you should have a fit interview, because you can't suss out, even at entry level, it's so hard to actually suss out technical skill.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and it was probably a bad choice.
And they
of
probably
word,
don't have any.
So
Right.
but
That's fine.
what I mean is the second interview should be the whoever that person is working for or whatever. They're
Right.
direct.
Yeah, not HR.
Right.
Tell
So-
me about a time that you have learned something new. Tell me about a time that you have had to deal with a difficult situation. If they can't answer that, but if they
Yeah.
can answer that, fuck, bring it in. Bring them all in.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
What
I
do you
hate
do if you
those
don't know how to
questions.
do something? That's one of my favorite
Yeah,
questions in an
exactly.
interview.
I Google
What do you
that shit.
do when you don't know how to fix what they're working on? Right?
What's the correct answer, Rick?
It's
Anything but,
No.
well, I'm confused and I have no follow-up questions.
yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
like-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything but
I'm just gonna poke at it till it works. Well, yeah,
Well, no, that's a valid answer.
sometimes
but-
that's the answer, but
Yeah.
Right.
But
Then,
no.
but then you're evaluating candidates, right? Like,
Right.
yeah.
if every candidate says, "Well, I'm going to poke at it till to figure it out," then like you got to go on other stuff. But
Yeah.
So other red flags in the interview process.
Ooh.
If they are asking you what seem like very specific technical questions, like they're effectively
Trying to fix a problem for
right,
free.
like they're
Yeah.
asking you to consult.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Don't.
I was going to kind of follow that, Chris. Like when the questions, and I guess it takes time to kind of get it, but when the questions are not necessarily relevant to the job, or they don't seem to have, it's a technical interview, but they're asking these sort of like personality type questions, things, a sort of mismatch of like, yeah, this is our meeting for technical stuff, but we're going to ask personal stuff, or this is like a get to know you meeting, and I'm going to grill you like with a ton of tech questions. Like, if what you were presented is what's going to happen and the interview is a lie, then that's a bounce for me.
Right.
Yeah, agreed. Well, and like very similar to that is interviews that are just a stump the chump session. Like you're just going to hammer me with like obscure technical questions.
Yeah.
No, this isn't a right fit. Sorry.
No, because then even if you did accept the job down the road, you're going to get so tired of the know-it-all that interviewed you and you worked for. It's going to make your life miserable. So why jump in that pool? Why?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the consistency for me is there too, where, if as much as annoying that it would be with someone just doing a grill for an hour or whatever, it's like, all right, well, at least you're there. But if you do a softball and then like an obscure technical reference, and then it's just like, even within a technical questionnaire, it just kind of goes from like layperson, hey, what is a subnet? What's an IP address? To please tell me exactly what the best, something very hyper specific. Because I've had those experiences where it's just like,
So-
you don't really know what you're asking, do you?
So I helped a person out once who was trying to develop a screening questionnaire for kind of entry level hardware techs. This was like 3 years ago. So like I've been doing this for a while. I know a thing or two about IT, and I went through the quiz and I answered every question. I knew the answer to every question. And then I responded back to the person who was asking me for help. I'm like, okay, first of all, I got this many wrong. So this many of your questions are just flat out bad. And here's like 16 questions that while I knew what you were looking for, there are 3 different ways to answer this question that you provided that are all correct, and here's why. So you need to tighten this up. And the feedback I got was like, wow, that's great. Also, are you looking for a job? I'm like, I mean, what are you paying?
Right.
And then they told me, I'm like, yeah, let me tell you what I make. And they're like, oh, right on.
That's a good question
Actually-
to bring up, Chris, because I know because I get approached by people and they're like, if a company is willing to give you their laundry list of demands, but are like going to be real kind of shifty about what the compensation, because I go ask for a range. I'm like, what are you looking for? Like, yeah, we're looking for a unicorn for like minimum wage. I was like, what was that last part? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh,
For
No.
for
Yeah, you better-
$45,000 a year.
Otherwise,
Right.
everyone in this transaction is wasting their time.
So my favorite
Before I
thing-
even talk to somebody, I want to know what the range is.
Um,
Don't give me some stupid numbers or I'm going to laugh at you.
Right.
So a flag that I'm ready to call red really quickly is when I see on a job description, salary range commensurate with experience.
That is so vague. What the hell does that mean? And
It
who
means that they're
decides how
going to
much
pay you
experience I have?
as little as they possibly can, and guaranteed their top level is less than you're willing to accept. Right? Like, essentially what it boils down to is you're going to come work here if you're desperate,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because they're going to figure out what they
Yeah.
think you'll take, and then they're going to offer you less.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Or you
And,
get I get a lot of unicorn requests that come through. We see you have all this experience with this different stuff. Hey, how about you do all of that for us under, how about desktop technician, we'll call it. I'm like, okay, this is A,
No.
not a desktop technician, and B, your laundry list is like fucking unicorn level 3 shit. Like, no way. Whatever you think you're gonna pay me, I'm sure it's well under market value at that point.
I went through an interview like that where it was the HR screen, and they're like, "Oh, you this, yeah, and this, okay." I'm like, "Oh, can we talk about salary range? It seems like you'd be a great fit." Translation, like even the HR person knew that like I was going to knock it out of the park. And I told him what my salary range was. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I don't think that we can go forward." If the HR screen isn't willing to go talk to the hiring manager to say, "I've got a great candidate that isn't in your range of hiring."
Hmm.
Oh, I've been told that exact thing.
That's a
Aurora,
red
Oh,
flag.
Yeah.
Aurora, that's so
yeah,
perfect.
that is so. And I've walked away from interviews after hearing something. Well, because one of the first things I sat down and said, we need to talk about salary.
Mhm.
And where are you at with that? And then the guy interviewing me kind of got miffed and was like, well, it shouldn't be all about money. And I'm like, I have a house payment to make. I have a kid that I have to support, a wife, all this kind of stuff. I need to know, because if you're going to pay me $15 an hour, I need to go somewhere else. I don't want to waste your time, and I certainly don't want you wasting mine.
Yeah.
Here's
Right?
the
Such
He
an
got
thing.
miffed,
insane
though.
process. Yeah, it's such an insane idea. It's like, do you think I do this job just because? Like, I'm doing this for money. That is the only reason I'm doing this for you. I will help my wife out with tech. I will help you out with tech for money. That's
Yes.
You're not my
Yes.
buddy. We're not friends.
Right.
You give me money. I give you work.
And that's really coming home to roost, because I mean, what have we all heard for like years and years and years is budget, money, cost, savings, like except for me, right? I'm the one who gets
Oh.
sent. Like, except for me. Like,
Yeah.
get sent. Come on.
Our people here wear lots of hats.
Well,
Yeah.
That means you're gonna have to do everything and get paid for nothing.
There's a lot of places that quite a few places I've been where, our people
Just saying.
they wear lots of hats. Yeah, that means you're understaffed. You're not paying people enough, and there's so much work to do.
yeah,
Well,
treat
Rick,
me like a rock
here's my
star.
exception to that rule.
Yeah.
If it's a startup and they need someone to do that, and there's like equity, if you want to take that risk,
Yes.
hey, we aren't going to pay you as much, but you get company stock. If this launches right, it's like, all right, we strike a bargain here.
But
and
you know
that's
what?
completely different.
Travis, that's paying you like a rock star, right? Like, no rock star makes it big day one, right? But if they stick on and things go well, they get huge bank. Give me a piece of that pie. Give me a shot at it. Sure.
Mhm.
Like, it shouldn't be all about the paycheck. Even a rock star, if they don't get the paycheck, they either move on to a different band or they get out of music.
Well,
Right.
They still get a point on all their records too, though. So
Right.
Yep.
you gotta get
In
your
perpetuity.
point. In perpetuity, you gotta get your point. You know, you get your 50 grand up front, but get your point too.
Yeah, ask Metallica if they do it for money, right?
Yeah.
Remember the Napster debacle back in the early 2000s? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Fucking Lars.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that tells you they're not in it for the money is either insane or is lying to you.
That's the thing. Anybody that says that is in it for the money. They just want it to be in their pocket, not in yours.
that is absolutely
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that
mean, it's
There's
just-
a
really
point
leads to,
where
like,
you can get to a point where I think I'm making the money I should be making. It would be nice to make more, but I think I'm getting a fair wage.
Yeah.
That I think that's kind of rare, but not when you're an entry level person trying to get a job,
no.
right?
And they're inexperienced. They don't have experience with how business works. Those are the people getting their nuts stomped on every single day. We've all been there.
They are.
We've all grown up through that. Maybe
Right.
maybe that's part of the process. I don't know.
Well,
I
so
don't know.
what I'll say for that entry level person, assuming they're paying you, look, if you've got a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, 3 kids, one of them about to go into college, 3 cars, and a stay-at-home wife, and you want to be making like $100K a year, you're not going to get that from entry level position,
Nope.
No.
right?
No. You
But-
should have done that math before you decided to switch careers
Right.
in your 40s.
Now, if they're paying you something that is a reasonable wage, like not just scraping by or even close to scraping by for an entry level position, but they're offering you an opportunity to learn and grow, that's fair compensation, right? Like a lot of your early career is about the opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah.
You're
But you
getting
still have bills to pay. Mouths,
right.
You know, so
Absolutely.
You should be able to. You should never be a risk for the company, because somebody paid you to compromise them.
Hmm.
That should be the basic equation for payment for any company. Is that if this person is given an opportunity to work on systems that, if they were compromised, would cost us a lot of money or could gain a lot of money for somebody else, you have to pay that person in a way that makes it not tempting to do so.
Yeah, yes. Uh,
And that's
but
all of
you also,
IT.
you also have to have some legit veterans on the payroll to guide those people along the way. You can't just
Absolutely.
you can't just you can't throw people to the fire and be like, whoever survives survives. You know,
No,
you can't
because
throw a bunch
that's
of
not the business holding up their end of the deal either.
Right.
correct.
I mean,
yeah.
that may be a question for entry level folks entering into the industry. Like, what does your department look like? Like, what's the department makeup? Right. And if they tell you, yeah, we got some really great senior guys, like, awesome. How long have they been working in the industry? If their answer is 6 years, maybe take a walk. Like, great senior guy with 6 years of experience. I guess if it's help desk, maybe. But like,
some people
you're
just really
joining
like
a-
help desk. I don't know why, but some people really like help desk. It's not for me.
like,
I've never had to do it.
but what I'm saying is, like, if you're going
You
to talk about a
couldn't do it,
senior
Brian.
person,
Oh God, no.
there's no way, Brian Ether. There would never be a thing. Hello, this is Brian Ether. How may I help you? And get 15 seconds into the call before he either hung up or just like, there's just
There,
that is,
so
you do not
that's a
have
great
mentality
that's a great
of-
point on like the mentality of just like some people. Like it doesn't matter what industry you're in, because there was a guy who came up on my team who came up through the help desk, and he told me, I don't do one-on-ones regular because I don't see the point in them. I'm talking to you every day. I know what's going on. But like annually, when you sit down and they're like, how's it going? And they'll say straight up, he's like, when you're on the help desk, you're kind of on cruising altitude. You're kind of just resetting passwords and you're doing your thing. And he said, but once you come over to the dark side, kind of, it's a whole nother beast. And some people can show up, they can get to cruising altitude, they go home, and that's it. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that.
No,
I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with
but
like
they
the
do
person that
after a
can
while,
do that.
though. I started on the help desk. My first job was help desk. Well, my first job was software police, which was miserable. But then I moved into working on the help desk, and I enjoyed it. For the first 4 or 5 years, it was great. But I wanted to move up. I always wanted to learn more and do whatever, right? But when you work on a help desk, it in my mind, because I've done it so long, Chris, you've done it too. In my mind, it is the absolute worst job in IT. In my opinion, it is a horrible, horrible job because nobody calls you to say, everything's great, Rick. We're real happy that you're there.
Mm-hmm.
I pick up the phone and they call, why isn't my shit working? I need you to get down here and I need it working. Why are you pricks always doing this to me?
Hey, Rick.
So I
you
just
ever
had
have
to
a
call
customer-
help desk this morning because an account that I don't log into nearly as often got locked out. It's for the company that Travis works for. Yeah.
I might block that out just to piss you off.
So I led with, good morning. How are you doing today? My name is blah de blah. I work with blah de blah. I have this issue. I gave them all, I was very cordial. I gave them all the information they needed. But I am also in IT.
You
I've never worked in
understand.
help desk.
Yeah.
My very first job out of the military in IT was as a network engineer. And I got hired because of one term on my resume.
And
Me?
It nothing that's relevant now, but it was squirrel mail.
oh, no kidding. That's outstanding.
It's all right.
I got hired sight unseen because of that word, that term on my resume. Like, I got interviewed after I already had the job, which actually has become a theme throughout my career. I've never actually interviewed for a job that I've got. I've not even done that many interviews. I've always gotten hired based on word of mouth, people that know me. And then afterwards, it's like, oh, HR wants us to do an interview, so let's sit down. That happened at the battery place. I had already been working for a week, and it was like, yeah. So HR says we need to do an interview.
It's real interesting that I think Rick said it, that, and I think we all would think hindsight that the help desk is the worst job in IT. But it's the worst job in IT for certain types of people. And for the certain types of people
Yeah.
who want to learn a whole bunch of shit and want to get really good at what they do. And maybe that's a good thing, that the help desk is the worst job in IT, because that's how you cut your teeth. That's how you
Yeah.
come up, and that's how you learn a bunch of shit that you don't know. And you
If
come
you
up
want-
in.
But it's also a great place for people that just want to reset passwords.
I suppose,
And
because I know people.
There's nothing
at the
wrong with
battery
that.
place-
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
Someone needs to do it. I don't want to do it.
People at the battery place that worked on one of the help desks there for better than a decade.
And
Jesus. No.
And you know what? Here's the thing. If you are good at talking to people, good at making them feel better, getting them calm, working on help desk is actually great. Like, they call you in trouble, they hang up with their problem solved. Like, you are an instant hero.
You're a
5
hero.
minutes.
You are their hero
Yeah.
for the day.
Yeah,
So
my
what's-
first 3 or 4 years, that was me. But after that, I turned into the guy that you didn't want to get on the phone.
Yeah, the grumpy old man we see before us today.
Yes, yeah.
Well, here's,
For a long
here's
time
my
now.
thoughts. Like,
Well, my
I-
daughter, she started on the help desk as well, and she was really good at it, but she burned out on it.
Mhm.
So now she's manager of something or another, and she audits all the help desk people, and she does what she hated her bosses doing.
Mhm.
So
Full
I think it
circle.
really depends, like, because I've always thought having so much field experience, both in medicine and I pretty much skipped the help desk too, to be honest, which was nice. But I've always thought, like, we're effectively the guys in the chair, and the end users, and even by proxy help desk. The shitter we do at our job of making sure that the network or the systems are solid, the more calls they get. And so I really think, like, if you have a burnt out, angry help desk, it generally gets blamed on them. It's like, wait a minute, they didn't design this network. They didn't design the security appliances. That was upstream. And there's almost a level of, like, obscurity that we get as engineers higher up, that there should be a little more flack coming upstream.
So I haven't been a network engineer as long as you guys have, but
You've been longer than me, for sure.
no, probably not, because I was a systems
He,
guy.
he was a systems guy, and then he switched
And
over.
Yeah, and I came over to the dark side. And
Decided to go to a life of predictability and money.
Yes,
what
predictability and money.
it was
that?
it was almost always never a network issue. People would assume it's a network thing. Well, no, it's not, because this, and
It
that.
must be the firewall.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, something's wrong. There's a network thing. It's this and that and the other, whatever. Something's wrong, and
It's
then it winds up
very
being a
easy.
systems thing, or more often than not, it's an application problem.
It's so easy to blame the network. So easy to blame. It's like people
Can you
wave
try
this,
rebooting the firewall that works at home?
yeah, you just wave
Yeah.
this magic wand and you're like, well, it must be the network, and they're magically absolved of all responsibility.
So I have some Windows 2022 servers in my environment, and you know that there's a patch that Microsoft puts out that has a problem with secure boot with VMware. I don't know if you guys have any Windows 2022 servers, but you might want to look into that and disable secure boot, because eventually you're going to get that patch and your systems will reboot and not reboot. One of my own guys called me Monday morning after my vendor ran our patches and never bothered to log into anything to check and make sure they were still up.
That's a fireable offense.
Yep,
I don't care if you're a MSP. You just got fired.
They don't know it yet, but they're short. But one of my own guys calls up and says, "I think there's a network problem. I'm pretty sure it's with the switches or the firewall.
My stuff won't boot. It must be the firewall.
We can't get to anything. We can't get to anything." Well, what do you mean you can't get to anything, right? It's at 7:30 in the morning. I'm getting ready to walk out the door, and I hop on the computer here, and I'm like, I can get logged into the firewall, so the network is up. Yeah, the only thing we can do is internet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, think about that for just a second. Just think about that. If the switch wasn't working, you wouldn't have the internet. If the firewall wasn't working, you wouldn't have the internet.
I got called
Rick,
on
Rick,
vacation.
it's tubes and pipes, man.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it jumps
he's one of
across.
my
It goes
guys.
to the internet. That's how it works.
yeah.
But anyway, so I
got
found out I had
called-
3 servers that wouldn't come back up. So yeah, I turned off secure boot, rebooted them, and we're back in business. 30 minutes later, everybody's working. So it's more often than not. My point is, it's rarely a network issue. So Travis, pipe down. It's not a network problem.
It's always a network problem.
Go ahead, Jesse. You're just dying to jump in.
Oh, I was just, the whole network problem thing. I got called one time when I was on vacation. I had a week of vacation planned, and my boss's boss called me from an unknown number on my cell phone. I didn't have it dialed on the cell phone, and it was no joke. It was 12:30 in the morning. It was midnight. I got to call my work phone, and I had been might have been consuming alcoholic beverages at the time when I was on vacation with some guys, and I was like, for some reason I picked up the phone, and it was my boss's boss, and he called me and he said he's in the office. I said, what? At 12:30 in the morning. He's like, we have a massive problem with this central system and so forth. And of course, he's like, is there any way there was any changes made to the network or firewall? And I was like, I don't think so. Pretty sure not. So I remember I distinctly told him, I said, that's not the answer you want, but it's the answer I have. And
So-
he was in the office. So I didn't hear the real fallout because I had the whole next week off. Because they would have called me if it was a network firewall issue or whatever.
Yeah,
I
would have gotten a call.
He was in the office at midnight, 12:30 in the morning.
Trying to figure
like,
something out. Yeah.
figure something out, and that just I came back after my vacation. I checked my email. I'm like, I still got a job. I still can log in. You know.
So that's a piece of advice
was
for the new guy, the new folks in the career. Actually, 2 pieces. One, some of your work is going to happen after hours.
Oh, yeah. You got to just accept that.
This is not a 9 to 5 job.
No,
Right.
it's a flexible job.
Red flag is if it's a 9 to 5 job and they want you to work the after hours.
Well, again, how many, 15 years ago, Chris, you and I were working for that place in Tosa. How many hours a week were you working?
There's a reason that we don't work there anymore.
That is true. We moved on. There is, and some of that, but there was a lot of hours. Even before that, when I was working at Marquette Medical Systems, and after that, even there was just stuff to do, and it needed to be done. And when the company was great, Marquette was really good about reciprocating, right? So I worked 70 hours. Either I got a bonus, I was salary not exempt, so I got overtime. But if I worked a bunch
nice.
it was great.
Nice.
So if I worked a bunch of hours the following week, I could come in at noon, 10 o'clock in the morning, whatever, go home at 4 and still get my 40 hours in, and everything was cool. Right. And there is stuff that will have to be done on a week. I still work weekends.
Right.
Because
what I'm saying, Rick,
there should always be a balance.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that there should be a balance. If you're working for a place that can't find a way to make that balance, right? Like they want you to work the 4 hours overnight twice a week, but they still want you to be there from 8 to 5 every day, no exceptions. There's a problem.
That's my last job.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can't do that. And if you're younger, you want to be like a go-getter type of thing. I think that there's been a biblical shift since COVID with the work from home, flexible hours.
Yep.
That cat's out of the bag, and it is never ever going back in the bag. It's over.
Not in one piece.
It's done. Not in one piece.
No, it's a suicide pact try.
At very best, it's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be kind of a hybrid world, right?
It's going to be a hybrid world, especially for an IT. So yes, we all know we work off hours. So you got to do a project on off hours on the weekends. Great. You work the whole weekend. Okay. Well, I'm taking off after Wednesday. Sorry. That's just the way it is.
Right.
And that earlier on, I don't know, post-COVID,
it's tough to find that balance, though.
It is,
especially when you're early in your career.
Well, there's two things motivating you when you're early on in your career, right? Because more often than not, you're a young person, so you've got a brand new family, or whatever. And I was kind of speaking from my own experience, because when I was new in this business, I had a brand spanking new family, a little baby, right? Had a wife that stayed home with the little baby. I was willing to put in all that extra time because I knew that 20, 30 years down the road, all that work would pay off, right? So I knew I was willing to put in all that time. Whether or not the company was going to make that happen or not was really irrelevant to me because I was going to make it happen, right? So that was my motivation. I don't know how many people share that, right? I don't know what kind of world that is, but I would certainly never say that if a company wants you to work a lot, that's a red flag, because you're probably not going to know until you've accepted the position whether or not they're going to be truthful about any kind of comp time or any kind of balance.
Yeah, it's a company that wants to work a ton of extra hours and not have any compensation that makes up for it, or compensation either in money or in time. Because like at the place that the whole top row worked together, I mean, there was weeks I only worked 10 hours, and then I had 100-hour plus weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
That shit sucks. But there was like months in a row I'd show up at like 11. Just kind of rolling whenever I felt like it, and then leave a couple hours later. Because I was so burnt out from working 100-hour weeks, I didn't give a shit. Or I was up till 3, 4, 5 in the morning.
Right. We had an excellent.
It all kind of balances out.
And the company trusted him to trust us.
Yeah. In retrospect, I was probably an awful employee because I never really checked any of this stuff with him first. I just kind of did it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to ask for forgiveness.
And you did raise the bar. You did kind of set the tone for the rest of us. Because there was a time when I was doing the same thing when Wendy was real sick or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd come home and stay up all night and whatever. And our boss would say, "You look tired. Why don't you go out in your truck and have a nap?" we really had a good situation for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would
But
say
at the
that's
same
not-
time,
that
like the
shouldn't be
warehouse
considered
would need
default.
something at 3 a.m. I'd be online and would be able to take care of them
Right.
like immediately.
Right.
I think it needs to be a conversation, and that's the important. I think for especially for newbies, if you're going into the interview process, have indicators. So mine that I like to ask is like, what is the expected work hours, and what's the flexibility that you have with it? If they give a strict number, it's 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever, and that's like we need people there. Like, okay. But if I'm going to be a network engineer or a firewall engineer, whatever, like, I can't do this. So there will be after hours. What
So-
does the compensation look like? One, for just the pure hours, if we're talking 40-hour work weeks. But on the other half, stuff that I like to ask now is like, what is my incentive for kicking ass and take names? You want C grade work? Cool. That'll be the salary. You want A plus rockstar shit? What's in it for me? Because you're getting something real nice and I'm getting nothing.
Yeah.
Or, especially in the case of salary work, if I crush my work in 10 hours that takes everyone else 40, I can't go to my boss and be like, got that 40 hours of work done in 10. They're like, great. Fill the rest of that 30 hours. I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
That means I'm getting 120 hours out of you this week. Sweet.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah. I call it the mule. Like, the mule's working hard again. I'm like, yeah, go fuck yourself.
That's a total 100%. I mean, the 80-20 rule is real, right?
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's like to the max, and when you see it, it's kind of hard to not see it. So that's where you dance the dance and walk the walk and try and make the most for you, but it's a balance of, it's a harmony of a lot of different equations. There's no one absolute that's going to get you everything you want, because money doesn't buy you everything. If I forced you to work 100-hour weeks forever and I paid you $1 million, eventually you're going to hate working for it. You're just going
I
to
just
hate
hit
it.
like a mark and then
You
leave.
you
and
just
I'd be
you're
good.
if you're going to eventually just be like, if money doesn't matter, I'm done. Like,
I mean,
it does,
here's
eventually,
the thing about that, right? Like, if I'm going to work 100 hours a week and you're going to pay me $1 million a year, I'll do that for 2 years. Because that's all I need to do it for.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I can check out at that point. That's worth it.
But it's very rare that stuff plays out that honest, and that's the part that always bugs me. And maybe this is for new people. Is, I mean, the whole interview process is I combat my lies with your lies. Whoever's the best liar, may they win. It's, oh yeah, no, I'm an expert in this, and you say you're going to pay me this much, and eventually we come to some sort of, at least an agreement, and that's probably more than anything. But if there isn't I think that's a really important part of the interview process, is have clearly laid out what are the expectations, maybe salary and or hourly, and what is the incentive process, what does the growth model look like, especially
Right.
if you're new. It's like, I'm help desk, I don't want to be help desk forever. What's my path out? It's like, all right, get these certs, get this much time in, whatever the agreement is, and then if they have a solid answer, you can determine whether that's acceptable or not.
So do you think back to when you first started and you were brand new in this business? Were you really asked to work a lot of overtime hours? Were you really pushed that hard? Because I wasn't until probably my second year in, and I wanted to do it. Right? So, because keep in mind that we're talking about new people, right? New people in this business.
Yeah.
Are they really going to need to be that wary of a
At
place?
some places, yeah. The places that are just gonna straight up take advantage of you, absolutely.
Okay.
The places in the middle, you're not gonna have the skills to need to put in those extra hours.
Right.
yeah.
Well, it never generally plays out, especially the more nefarious places. Even the middle ones will be like, "Hey, we need some help. Hey, we just need you to pitch in. We need there's rarely will someone truly engage and be like, "Hey, Chris, we need you to work the weekend. It's going to be an extra 6 hours." And then giving like, "Hey, we'll comp you on Monday or something." It's usually like, "We need this. What will you give us?" And then, or "Hey, we
So
really
my
need some."
experience has been it's 50-50, right? Either they are honest about it, and maybe it's not like that doesn't even occur to them right away that they need to do something, because it's shocking how naive they're. Like, oh yeah, you need you to work on the weekend. Like, awesome. So it's okay if I come in late on Monday, right? And they're like, well, yeah, I guess, right? Or it's like, yeah, we need you to work on the weekend, but like make sure you take off early on Friday. Like 50-50. Either they want to, and it's interesting, like it's almost diametrically opposed. Nobody falling square in the middle. There's the ones that are like reasonable about it, understand what they're asking, and are willing to give you something in exchange for what they're asking of you. And then there's the ones that are like, I'm going to get every ounce of blood I can out of your body until you collapse. And if you ask me to not do that, I'm going to start to make you feel bad. And what I'll tell you is you're going to be way happier working at the companies that treat you well, and they're going to pay you better. So if you get those red flags, fine. Like maybe you want to Rick's point, like maybe this is one of your first jobs. Maybe you want to be the go-getter. Maybe you want to take advantage of those opportunities. That's fine. Like make that trade if you want to. Just recognize that like that behavior doesn't change. Right.
That's
Correct.
exactly right. Because once you've
Correct.
opened that door is open.
Yeah.
Right. So there it is. I wanted to touch on, if you guys don't mind, touch on something that Travis, you said a few minutes ago
Mhm.
about you when you go in and you talk to them and you say, okay, what are the hours? Are you flexible? Right. An entry-level person typically are the people that need to be there when the majority of the other workers or whatever is in the building. So a lot of those entry-level
Like
jobs,
help desk. Yeah.
yeah, the desktop support technician, the laptop people, whatever, they need to be there during those working times. And I'm glad that they are, because then I don't have to be. I don't work from 8 to 5. Even in my current job, even my last job, I didn't work 8 to 5. I got up when I felt like it and I went to work and I worked until I was done. Right? If I was one of the entry-level people, I couldn't do that because my job, entry-level jobs are very specific, right? You guys need to start here because that's when the company starts. And because it's an 8-hour day, you're done 8 hours later, or 8.5 hours later, or 9 hours later, whatever that is.
It brings up an interesting point though, Rick.
Mhm.
I've never met an organization that's truly 8 to 5, with maybe sort of the exception of manufacturing. But
Mhm.
even then, like they're 7 to 3, right? But like management's getting in at 6 or staying till 5.
Mhm.
So they don't need support from 7 to 3. They need support from 6 to 6.
Yep.
And if you're
You need to split your shifts a little bit.
right,
Yep.
if you're an entry level person and like they say, yeah, we're a 7 to 3 shop, and you're like a 9 to 6 kind of person, ask the question, right? If they're like, oh, I don't know if you're a team player, move on. Find the place that has the wherewithal and the intelligence to recognize, you know what, you're a 9 to 6 person. You'd prefer to be here until 6 o'clock. If you can come in at 9, okay, I'll hire you. To like, are you going to be able to do that day one of your job? No, you got to train up. You got to get your stuff right. But eventually, yeah, you transition to be that late guy. And somebody else is like, oh yeah, I'm up at 5 every day. I'd rather just get into the office at 5:30 and like get my stuff done and be done by 2. Like, okay, the company needs those people too.
Right.
And that speaks to the agility of the enterprise or the place. Honestly, is like the ability to flex and flex preemptively, and that's the ones that I look for. Is like, hey, if we're going to be in an engineering position, which we're doing lots of after hours changes or stuff, and they're like, yeah, we want you from 9 to 5. Like, okay, right in the middle of the day is my planned time in which I can never do changes. That seems dumb inherently.
Yes.
Why not shift the shift so that it is in a way where I'm, not always doing after hours work or my schedule's all over the map. I negotiated
that's
my
free
place
for them.
a 4x10 schedule. And so I have Wednesdays off, but I work until 7 p.m. the other days. And it's like, yeah, so after hours, there's my maintenance windows. If I want to do stuff or things in which it might annoy other people, works great. Instead of having my time be the exact same as when office workers are, and They hopefully should know that and that should be something I think you should ask it in the interviews.
Yeah.
What is the flexibility? What are the growth models? What are my things I'm going to have? If you're going to ask me to climb a tower, are you going to give me rappelling gear to do so? If the answer is no, or they're like, we don't know, it's like the answer is no. We don't know is no.
No, nobody's ever asked us for safety gear,
Yeah.
right?
I remember
Like, oh, okay, your culture of never giving. Nobody even asked. It's so bad. Got it.
Right.
I remember when I did interview for Market Electronics, I asked, "Oh, do we get to do overtime?" And my boss was like, "What? You want overtime?" And I'm like, "You bet your ass I do." Right? So that was pretty
So
fun.
last piece of advice for us. I think maybe
second to
tonight,
last.
at least
Second to
second to
last.
last.
Second to
Yeah,
last.
he's got some
Fair
more
enough.
advice.
No, I'm gonna let you go first because I have a great piece
Okay.
of last advice.
All right.
Go ahead.
Piece of advice. One, I'll give it a tip. So we've all
Just
been
a tip.
Just the tip.
Just the
What a
tip.
Just to
gentleman.
see if you like it.
So most of us have had entrance tests where they give you this like personality test, right? Where they give you a
Ugh.
series of 50 questions. And
Brian's a big D.
yeah. So there's radio buttons, right? Where each question it's like 5 radio buttons where one side says strongly disagree, and there's like 3 in the middle, and there's what other side says strongly agree, right? We've all
Mhm.
seen those questions.
Yep.
We've all seen those tests.
Yep.
So one tip to new hires is I've seen the answer questions to those tests, those kinds of tests. They all work the same way. The buttons in the middle don't matter. Every question either is strongly agree or strongly disagree. So if you have questions like that and you answer them in the most corporate way possible, you probably will come out ahead. As one HR representative told me one time, like, wow, you did really good on that test. No shit, bitch.
So I will add to the scoring system on those is interesting because not only like the right answer extremes and the middle ones, but they want you to express opinions. So don't have too many corporate answers. Because it's tough to say
They don't
what the
want my
particular
opinions.
company is looking for on some of those questions.
Yeah.
That is not the time to go off the
Just don't
rails
be-
on your
don't be
anti-government
milquetoast.
rant. It's not in the comment section.
Yeah, they can pay me for my answers. They can't handle my opinions.
Opinions,
Yeah.
yes. Yes. So it's a
Right.
test. It's a test, and give
Yeah.
them the answers to the test.
Right.
You are a
Your
good corporate
manifesto
employee,
Your
Correct.
not a
job is to
lunatic.
Yeah,
pass
good-
the test.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
no
you're pre-
option for burn it all down and switch to crypto.
But that is excellent advice.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for this?
Let's have it.
No, let's go.
One of the most important skills you can ever develop in your IT career is knowing just how drunk you can be and still do a specific level of work. Right? Like
The drunk change request.
Yeah, the drunk change control.
the drunk change control, but more importantly, the drunk support call. When
Oh.
the support call comes in and they're
Oh,
like, the system is down, you need to be able to ask enough questions or determine that you are too drunk to ask those questions and then figure out, like, is this above or below my level of inebriation? So, and if you can't do it, don't drink while you're on call.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you can do it,
Balls the wells, baby.
enjoy
Also,
yourself.
consider upgrading
Well,
your
maybe not-
career, because if you can do whatever you do drunk, maybe it's not that hard for you.
Okay?
True.
That's
This is
a wise man.
Very true.
I mean, with the right amount of liquid, I am a perfect documenter.
There's a inverse curve, right? Like your drunkenness and you think your ability goes up, but then your drunkenness keeps going up, But
Your
you
ability
think your
to-
ability.
Start kind of peeking out now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I'm horrible at
The math
darts,
on that, the
Stone
physics
Cold
on that's
Sober.
really fucked up. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the inebriation corollary.
Well, now, honestly, what do you think the best piece of advice, the single best piece of advice you could give somebody, brand spanking new, I mean, no comic, but the real best piece of advice that you could give somebody?
Yes.
Well, that is absolutely true. I've been
But
saying
slightly
that
better than that is to like and subscribe and to watch every week.
There
And
you
we
go.
will tell you all the best things
Yeah.
to do.
There you go. There you go.
So next week, we will at least,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, we're obligated to do next week now because we didn't even touch on the good, the bad, and the uglies of vendors.
Yeah.
We kind of did with my little weekend experience with my patching vendor.
Yeah, scarcely, but yeah,
About to lose a.
yeah. I don't know. Respond in the comments. Does Tuesdays at 8:30 Central work for you guys? And then also to the panel themselves. Now that the panel has grown a little bit, I mean, there's people
You guys
that
haven't thrown
rotate
me
in and
out
out,
yet,
and
so rock and roll.
yeah. So does
We'll try.
Tuesdays kind of work for everyone? Like Tuesday evenings. I know it's a little early in the evening for you, Travis, but everyone else is central.
Technically, I'm
Central
still on work
Standard
time.
Time.
So yeah, all right. We're gonna try and do an Ops Oops origami every Tuesday until we run out of things to say, and then maybe we'll start spacing them out because we've had some big gaps, but it's gotten to the point where there's enough people that are interested in coming on. I mean, there's probably a total of maybe 7 people, of which usually we can pull 4. So it's,
Yeah.
and I think last couple of shows have been great. I'm not saying it's all due to you, Travis, but I mean you're the
I
new
would.
blood. So.
I'll say it's all because of me.
You were
Yeah.
the missing.
Oh
link,
yeah, and
Travis.
Rick has made the last 2 as well. Rick was gone for a while, so absent, notoriously absent.
Mysteriously upset. I have a very expensive wife, so I've been working hard.
Understandable. Well, hey, you marry that hot young broad and
Yeah. But
you
no,
gotta take care of her.
She did win her contest this past weekend, so
I saw that. That was very
Nice.
impressive.
so yeah, it was pretty fun. So it didn't turn out to be a fun weekend until she actually won. Then everything got much better.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Absolutely.
Did your ears pop?
No, but she was just stressed out beyond. I mean, yeah, a lump of coal would have been a diamond in no time.
Okay,
Those are the
fair enough.
best
Fair
kind.
enough.
Yeah, it was rough going in because she wasn't prepared and whatever, and we spent all of Friday night, very into very early Saturday morning studying and whatever and doing whatever because they give you a series of questions to prepare for. You walk up on the stage and you pull one question out of a hat. They read it to you. You answer that question, but there's 19 of them at this particular contest, so you have to have 19 answers to these questions, right? So,
Right.
and she was freaking out about her hair and her makeup and this and that and the other, and so, but it turned out really, really good. She did an outstanding job, and she was recognized, and the drive home was spectacular.
Doesn't matter. Got the W. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Wait for it. Wait for it. I'm making you wait
We're waiting.
longer.
There it is.
Get them
Got it.
W's.
That's right. That's all that matters.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, which I know a lot of you haven't, because we got a lot more views tonight than hell. There was 4 people on Rumble just now, and
Actually.
another 2 on YouTube. So we're finally getting more viewers than we have actual people on the panel, which is
That's pretty awesome.
I call that a win.
That's a sad win, but I'll take it.
We'll take it.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Yes, baby steps. I mean,
Heck. If you don't want to subscribe, grab your coworker's phone and subscribe from theirs.
yeah,
right?
yes.
It's
We
fine.
need you to subscribe so we don't have to.
That's how
Steal their YouTube tokens,
is that
jump in their account, hit the
farmersonly.com.
subscribe like button, whatever it
Yes.
takes.
Every
No
time you
judgment.
stay in an Airbnb that has like a streaming device, you know what? Like and subscribe to every video we've ever made. Thank you in
Captive portal
advance.
leads right to
I
this account.
appreciate it.
You're good.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, yes.
Alrighty.
All right. Thank you, everyone that's has joined us. Thank you, everybody that's on the panel, and thank you, Aurora St. Croix, because you're the person that comments.
excellent comments. Yep.
W2K, make it up for her, or to her.
Yes, I will.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.